friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Tori, and today we're going to do a book haul. I finally feel a little bit human again after the last couple of days of just being sick, and so I'm very excited to share all of these books with you guys that I've gotten in the last month. So first of all, let's go through our Kindle purchases for the month. I was involved in the Indie Narratus sale, which was going on from August 26th to 28th. Tessa Hesteryanto, who's an indie author and a huge part of the community, puts on this sale twice a year, and it's amazing. And every single time I'm like, I don't need more books. I'll be fine. And we all know how that goes. The first one is a brand new book that is actually coming out today, which is a couple days ago when you're watching this. Shattered Spirits by Cal Black. Now, Cal Black is also known for her book No Land for Heroes, which is quite popular in the indie community as a fantasy western. There's apparently some kind of a bomb that separates people's souls from their bodies, and that's kind of one of the main conflicts of this story, and I'm just really excited to see what she does with that concept and looking forward to reading it. Next up, I picked up fellow Spiffbo contestant E.C. Greaves' book Daughter of the Beast. So in this book we have a main character who is kidnapped by a raiding party from her village, and she's the only person taken. She is then raised by the matriarch of the people that take her. I just think that this book is going to be a really engaging, tense read, and I'm really excited to check it out. Next up, I picked up The Doctrines of Fire by C.L. Jarvis. This is also a Spiffbo 9 competitor, and this book is really interesting sounding. It takes place in 1779 Edinburgh, and it has to do with kind of a deadly conflict between fire mages and then people who are delving into darker magical arts, from what I understand. And I think that having a historical fantasy is going to be a great fun read. Next up, I picked up Shadow of a Dead God by Patrick Samphire. I know very little about this book other than it has a sarcastic protagonist, which I think will be very fun to read. I'm excited. I've been hearing a lot about this book, and I figured it was high time to actually grab the Kindle version so that I have it available to read. Next up, I picked up Sea of Souls by N.C. Scrimgeour. I have read books by her before. She's also the author of Those Once Forgotten, which is a science fiction that I've read earlier this year and really enjoyed her writing style, so I was excited. This one has to do with Selkies, which are a mythological creature that lives in the water, and I'm very excited to see what she's done with that. I'm always here for a fantasy book that delves into lesser known mythological creatures. Next up, I picked up Stellar Instinct by Jonathan Nevers. This book, again, I know very little about, other than it is a sci-fi secret agent mashup. I'm here for it. I'm excited about that, so I thought that that would be a fun kind of swerve away from my usual reading taste, and I always try to look for books that I think are going to be a fun deviation when I need a good palate cleanser. I also picked up a necromancer called Gam Gam by Adam Holcomb. This book is a very short little book about a necromancer grandmother and a horde of zombies, and I'm really excited to read this. I've been hearing really great reviews of this, that it is an incredibly heartwarming and fun little book, and I'm really looking forward to it. Next up, I picked up the first volume of The Wandering Inn by Pirate Abba. So this one I have to blame my friend Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads for, because he's been reading it recently, and the problem with Andrew is that he can really sell any book to any person pretty much, and so I'm over here with a giant stack of books that I need to be reading, and Andrew somehow convinces me to get a hold of the first book in an incredibly long fantasy series, the longest fantasy series I believe that exists currently. It's multi-millions of words long, and I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm willing to give it a shot, and I'm actually really looking forward to checking it out. Those are my ebook purchases for the last month. Now I'm going to get into review copies that I have been graciously sent by the authors. The first one, I got the physical copy of Isla's Reach by Francesca Liliana. This is an author that I connected with while she was reading Malazan Book of the Fallen for the first time, and I know that this is going to be a grimdark delight. I'm really looking forward to it. There, I think, were dragons in the past in this story, which is kind of a fun take on things. So I'm really looking forward to reading this, and thank you so much to Francesca for sending me the physical copy. Next up is a book I actually just received in the mail about 20 minutes before making this video, and that is The Exile of Zanzibar by Daniel Maidman. This is another Spiffbo 9 competitor with me this year, and I really don't know that much about it other than we have some ancient historical influence, maybe with Greek and Roman culture. And I'm really, really looking forward to this. I don't know anything about it, but it sounds really intriguing when I brush through the synopsis really quickly. It has a blurb, let's see if you guys can see this, by Pierce Brown. So, okay. If any blurb is ever going to get me to read a book faster, it'll be a Pierce Brown. So I'm really looking forward to reading this. Thank you so much, Daniel, for sending me the copy of it. The next book that I was sent by an author is Sons of Darkness by Gaurav Mohanty. This cover is one of my favorites I've seen come out in the last couple of years. It is just gorgeous. This book is a grimdark fantasy book that is inspired by the Mahabharata from India. So there's a lot of Indian historical flavor mixed in with a modern grimdark fantasy setting. And I am so excited to read this book. I think it's going to be amazing. I'm really looking forward to it. I am hoping that it will be still very accessible to someone that does not have as much of a background with the historical influence that it's coming from, but I'm really excited to check this out, and Gaurav was very kind enough to send me a physical copy. Last but not least on the review copies lineup is a gorgeous, gorgeous copy of Renia, I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce it, by Carl Forshaw. This book is stunning. So we've got this gorgeous purple cover, beautiful background, and look, black sprayed edges. I am a sucker for a good sprayed edge. This is an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous book. I'm really excited to check it out. Again, this is a book that I don't know a ton about. We have a main character who is a scribe, which is something that I am very excited to read because I think that is a occupation that maybe doesn't get the focal point in a lot of fantasy books. So I'm excited about that, and it's kind of a dormant magic situation that's reawakening, and I've been hearing really great things about this book, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. So Carl, thank you so much for sending me a copy. Okay, now we're going to get into the massive stack of books that I have purchased. And I'm going to start the first one off with a book that shocked me, even that I bought it. I don't know why, but this is a bucket list item for me. It's a book that I would like to be able to say at some point that I've read, and that is War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I had heard from a couple of people that this was a good translation. It's translated by Richard Pever and Larissa Volokhonsky. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is a book that I purchased after chatting about Tolstoy versus Dostoevsky with Jimmy from the Fantasy Network. And I don't know, we may end up reading it at some point. I am really looking forward to this, surprisingly. I think this book obviously has a reputation for being the scary classic that a lot of people are afraid to read, but I've heard enough about Tolstoy that I am very willing to give this a shot. Next up, I purchased my physical copy of Blue Flames, which is book 3 in the Riverfall Chronicles by Jacqueline Hagan. I absolutely loved The Wickwire Watch and The Spider Key so much. This is a debut indie author to watch, which I have said in every video that I've talked about these books in. I cannot wait to get into this book. The ending of book 2 had me on the edge of my seat, and I am just so looking forward to continuing the story. This is going to be a 7-book series, and I am signed up, I'm ready, I am excited to just buckle up for the ride that is this series. I love these characters and I am just so impressed. Next up, I purchased this very tiny little book called The Recollections of Rifleman Harris. So this book is the little memoir, essentially, of a foot soldier during the Napoleonic Wars, a young man who was brought out of his family's livelihood of shepherding and thrown into a war situation. And this is a book that I am reading with my husband and our college friends for our book club, and I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be a great mix-up from the fantasy genre, and I always really love these first-hand foot soldier kind of accounts of war because I just think they're incredibly impactful. And the Napoleonic Wars is an era of history that I really don't know that much about, so it's going to be fun to kind of dip my toes in a little bit with this one. Next up, I went to a library sale. There's a little kind of bookstore attached to the big library in the city closest to us, and they had some great stuff when I was there. They had books 2 and 3 of the Empire, is it the Empire trilogy by Raymond E. Feist and Janny Wirtz. I had book 1 already and I was really excited when I looked at the fantasy shelf and they had book 2 and 3 sitting there like they were just made for me, and I grabbed those really quickly. I've been really looking forward to reading Janny Wirtz's work in general. I also have not read anything by Raymond Feist yet, so I'm really looking forward to this trilogy because I've been hearing amazing things about all of these books, and I'm really excited to get into them. Next up is yet another author that I would not have picked up without Andrew from Andrew's Wizardly Reads recommendation, and that is NPCs by Drew Hayes. This is a book that Andrew recommended that I try. He thinks I'm really gonna like it, and I'm taking part in the readathon over on Andrew's Discord, and Nico and all of the other wonderful booktubers that run that Discord server. Our server-wide buddy read, one of them is NPCs by Drew Hayes, so I figured it's the perfect excuse to pick this up and check it out. As you can see, it's not super long. I'm looking for some humor. I'm looking for a quick, easy, fast, enjoyable read with this, and I think that's exactly what I'm gonna get. Next up, I got Lightbringer by Pierce Brown. This is book 6 in the Red Rising saga. I still have not read Iron Gold or Dark Age, but I ordered Lightbringer right away when it came out because I'm hoping in the near future here to just binge through all 3 of the books that are out for the end. This is actually the penultimate book in the series. He does have one more coming out called Red God, I believe, but I'm really excited to actually get into the rest of the series. The first trilogy of Red Rising is my favorite series of all time. I absolutely love it. Pierce Brown is one of my favorite authors of all time, and I'm really looking forward to finishing out this series. Next up is a manga. So this is the first volume of Vagabond. It is the omnibus edition, so it does have the first 3 volumes of the manga in it. This is a series that was talked very heavily about by my friend Murphy Napier and also Philip Chase, Dr. Fantasy, and I have not watched any of their shows yet because I haven't read the manga, but I love, after loving Shogun so much and loving Japanese samurai history and all of that, I was very intrigued by this, and I had just kind of been waiting to find a copy of this first book at a decent price, and I finally ran across one, and I have been so excited to pick this up. It has been a long time since I've read a manga that really grabbed my interest, and I am pretty sure that this series is going to be one that I just will not be able to put down. Next up is a book that is no stranger to my channel, and that is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. I purchased this version of it just because the only version I have is the mass market paperback, and I would like to reread it at some point, but I am very well known as a trade paperback fan. That is my preferred physical reading format. I'm not necessarily always a fan of hardcovers and mass market paperbacks. I will read all 3 of them, but trade is definitely my preferred format. So I wanted to have this book in trade format so that I have the option when I go back to reread it. Alright, next up is another few books that I purchased at the bookstore, the library bookstore. One of them is Reckless by Tom Clavin. This book is about a racehorse from Korea who then became a hero of the Marine Corps. She is a very famous historical figure both in Korea and also here in the US, and not enough people honestly know the history behind this, but she was a horse that carried ammunition and supplies through gunfire, through some of the worst battles, to the troops, and she was a massive hero of her time. So I'm very excited to check this out and read about her story in more detail. These are historical books, and it is a trilogy, The Civil War, A Narrative by Shelby Foote. Now, my grandfather, as I've mentioned on the channel before, is a leading expert in especially the Minnesota 1st Regiment in the Civil War, and I was raised on tales of the Civil War and World War II. And my grandfather always said that this trilogy was one of the best, just kind of straightforward narratives of the Civil War as a whole. So when we went to the bookstore and I saw each of these books on sale for like $15 each, I couldn't help but get the whole set because now I have my own version of them, and I am really looking forward to at some point flipping through these and just kind of connecting with a lot of the Civil War history again. That it's been a long time since I've read Civil War content, and honestly I'm looking forward to maybe diving back into that in the near future. Next up is another trilogy. I have been recently reading The Long Price Quartet, which you guys know if you've been around my channel. I am absolutely loving it. I'm now a huge fan of Daniel Abraham's character work especially. And so as soon as I had read book 2 of The Long Price Quartet, I knew that I wanted to purchase everything that this man had ever written. And so I got myself a trade paperback version of his Dagger and Coin trilogy, which consists of The Dragon's Path, The King's Blood, and The Tyrant's Law. I'm so excited to get into these. I am a huge fan of Daniel Abraham after reading Long Price Quartet, and I am finishing up the last book of that this month. I'm really looking forward to reading more of Daniel Abraham's work, and this trilogy is a natural next step after Long Price Quartet. Last but not least is a gift I was sent by my friend Palmer Pickering, who is another Spiffbo 9 competitor and author of the book Heliotrope. And she had found these beautiful copies of The Jade Setter of Jan Loon, which is by Fonda Lee, who is the author of the Greenbone Saga, and she's written now 2 novellas set in that same world. And the covers are just so cool. I love these jade statue covers so much. I think they're really beautiful. And it happens to be signed, which is super cool. So Palmer, thank you so much for sending me this, and I am really excited to get into the Greenbone Saga in September here. I cannot wait to start reading it, and I am sure that the novellas are going to be a really awesome addition to that series once I'm done. So that is everything that I have for book haul this month. I have slowed down on my book buying quite a lot after these books have all come in, because once again, I have a lot of books, and I have been unhauling quite a few books that I don't always film, so I have been kind of moving some space out on the shelves, but overall, I really need to start working on catching up on the books that I have and really getting through a lot of these series so that I can decide if I want to keep. I really need to start getting through some of these series because they do take up a lot of room on my shelves, and if they don't click with me, then there's really no reason for me to let them stay and keep. I'd rather have somebody else who really enjoys them have them. I hope you guys are having an awesome week. I hope you are reading 5-star reads, and I will see you in the next video.